You know, reviews are supposed to help you shop, right? Well, today we're going into the part of Amazon where logic went to die. These are not fake sketches, not comedy bits, just 69 real people who saw a normal product and use the review section as therapy, stand-up, or evidence that common sense has officially left the chat. 1. A customer bought a single tiny micro SD card and left a furious one-star review because it arrived in a box large enough to house a small cat. Their complaint wasn't about the product, which worked fine, but about the sheer volume of air and cardboard they were sent. They accused Amazon of trying to single-handedly deforest Canada for their packaging. Apparently, this person expected a lone Amazon drone to deliver the card, delicately wrapped in a single, sustainably sourced leaf. The personal offense they took from receiving an excess of protective packaging was truly something to behold. 2. A now infamous review for a brand of sugar-free gummy bears reads, "Less like a complaint and more like a harrowing dispatch from a war zone." The buyer, after consuming a handful, documented what they described as a gastrointestinal apocalypse. The review detailed hours spent on the toilet, with sounds that violated the Geneva Convention. Their one-star complaint was a desperate public service announcement, warning humanity that these seemingly innocent treats were, in fact, Satan's own recipe for gut-wrenching revenge. They weren't just unhappy, they were a survivor. 3. Someone purchased a very realistic latex horse mask for a party and left a scathing review complaining that it was irresponsibly lifelike. Their primary grievance was that upon wearing it, their own dog began barking uncontrollably and refused to come near them for the rest of the night. The baby cried, the cat hissed, and the party was, in their words, a social disaster. They were genuinely angry that the mask did its job too well, demanding a refund because the product was exactly as advertised. A mask that makes you look terrifyingly like a horse. 4. An individual bought a best-selling cookbook and gave it 1 star with a complaint that will baffle anyone who has ever cooked. The reason for their fury? The book required too many ingredients and relied too heavily on reading. They were genuinely upset that the recipes listed more than 3 items and that they had to follow step-by-step written instructions instead of just looking at pictures. This person was seemingly searching for a cookbook that would magically manifest a gourmet meal using only salt, water, and sheer willpower. 5. One of the most legendary reviews was left on a can of actual uranium ore, available on Amazon for scientific purposes. The customer gave it a dismal 2 stars. Their complaint wasn't about the mild radioactivity or the shipping. It was because, after purchasing the product, it failed to give them superpowers and was completely useless for powering their DeLorean time machine. They were genuinely disappointed that their $40 purchase of a literal radioactive element did not immediately transform them into a Marvel superhero. 6. After purchasing a high-end professional-grade chef's knife, a customer left an angry 1-star review with a simple, yet profound complaint. The knife was far too sharp. They explained that they had lightly grazed their finger on the blade while washing it, and it cut them instantly. Instead of appreciating the precision engineering of a quality cutting tool, they treated it as a design flaw. They were seemingly accustomed to dull, cheap knives that you could probably ride like a skateboard, and were shocked that this one actually performed its sole function with ruthless efficiency. 7. A buyer left a scathing review on a popular self-help book titled The Secret to Infinite Success. Their 1-star complaint was blunt. "I read the entire book 2 weeks ago, and I'm still not a millionaire and my life still sucks." They seemed to believe the book was a magic spell, and that by simply finishing the last page, their bank account would spontaneously fill up and a parade would be thrown in their honor. The concept that they had to actually apply the principles within the book was, apparently, a complete deal-breaker. 8. Someone bought a silent, high-frequency dog whistle and promptly left a 1-star review claiming it was a scam. The complaint read, "This product is broken. I blow into it as hard as I can and absolutely no sound comes out. My dog doesn't react and neither do I." They were furious that a product explicitly marketed as being silent to the human ear was, in fact, silent to their human ear. It's a spectacular failure to understand the entire point of the product, essentially like complaining that your sunglasses make the world appear darker. 9. The legendary Three-Wolf Moon. T-shirt has thousands of ironic reviews, but one customer framed their 5-star rating as a complaint about its overwhelming power. They wrote that the shirt worked too well and had become a social burden. They claimed they couldn't wear it in public anymore because they had to fight off hordes of adoring women with a stick. Their complaint was that their life had become too awesome and that the raw, magnetic power of the three wolves howling at the moon was simply too much for one mortal man to handle. 10. A customer who purchased an inflatable piece of toast, yes, a pool floaty shaped like toast, left a genuinely confused and angry 1-star review. Their complaint was simple and devastatingly absurd. It doesn't fit in my toaster. This person, with all the seriousness they could muster, was upset that a vinyl, air-filled novelty item could not be used in a high-temperature kitchen appliance designed to brown actual bread. The review stands as a monument to a thought process that is both baffling and, honestly, a little bit scary. 11. A man bought what he thought was a stylish modern lounge chair for his new apartment, based on a very cool-looking product photo. When it arrived, he was furious to discover it was a piece of miniature dollhouse furniture, barely 6 inches tall. His 1-star review was a masterpiece of rage, complaining that the seller was deceptive for not explicitly stating, "This chair is for a very, very small person." He was personally offended that he couldn't kick back with a beer in his new chair, which would have struggled to support a hamster. 12. Someone left a blistering 1-star review on a bottle of hot sauce named Satan's Tears. Their chief complaint? The sauce was, in their words, violently and unnecessarily hot. They described the experience not as eating, but as a chemical assault on their mouth and entire digestive system. Instead of recognizing that a product named after the devil's sorrow might pack a punch, they treated its extreme heat as a shocking design flaw, as if they were expecting a mild, tomato-based ketchup with a hint of brimstone. 13. A driver purchased a new GPS unit and left a seething review because it kept leading them to the exact addresses they typed into it. Their complaint was that the device had no imagination and was too literal. They were genuinely angry that when they asked for the quickest route to a specific destination, the GPS didn't psychically understand that they actually wanted a more scenic, interesting journey with better lunch options along the way. They basically wanted a co-pilot and a tour guide, not a navigation system. 14. A woman bought a designer dress she had seen on a 6-foot-tall supermodel in the product photos. She gave it 1 star with a complaint that was truly special. "I put the dress on, but I still don't look like the model." She was genuinely disappointed that the garment did not magically alter her body type, height, and facial structure to match the professional model. She blamed the fabric and cut for failing to perform what would essentially be an act of God, proving that for some, online shopping is a quest for literal transformation. 15. A user who bought a noise-canceling headphone set for a flight left a furious review, claiming they were defective. The reason? While wearing them, they could still hear their own thoughts. This person was not joking. They seemed to believe that noise-canceling technology was supposed to create a perfect, silent void, both outside and inside their own skull. They were genuinely upset that a pair of headphones couldn't stop their internal monologue, a feature that, if it existed, would probably be worth millions. 16. The product was a simple milk frother designed to whip up foam for lattes. A customer gave it 1 star, complaining that it was too powerful and created an uncontrollable amount of foam. Their review included a photo of their coffee mug overflowing with a mountain of bubbles, like a science fair volcano. They were angry that the $20 gadget did its one and only job with extreme efficiency, turning their morning coffee ritual into what they described as a dairy-based disaster. 17. Someone purchased a large minimalist wall clock and left a one-star review that was less of a complaint and more of an existential crisis. They wrote that the clock's constant, silent ticking and the relentless march of its hands served as a permanent and depressing reminder of their own mortality. They were angry that the product, a device for telling time, was in fact a device for telling time. They wanted a refund because the clock was giving them too much anxiety about the fleeting nature of existence. 18. A customer bought a flat-packed, build-it-yourself bookshelf and was absolutely outraged by what they received. Their one-star review complained that the box contained nothing more than a pile of wood planks and a bag of screws. They were genuinely shocked and offended that a product marketed as a bookshelf kit required them to actually follow instructions and assemble it. They seemed to have expected a fully formed, master-crafted piece of furniture to magically emerge from the cardboard. No Allen wrench required. 19. After buying a brand new yard sprinkler, a user left a one-star review with a very specific, very odd complaint. It was watering the neighbor's lawn too. They were incensed that the arc of the water spray extended about a foot over their property line, providing free hydration for the grass next door. They viewed this not as a minor adjustment issue, but as a fundamental betrayal, accusing the sprinkler of being disloyal. They wanted a product that respected strict property boundaries. 20. A student bought a pack of BIC disposable pens and left a scathing review because, after several weeks of heavy use, one of them ran out of ink. They treated this completely normal and expected outcome as a catastrophic product failure. They were furious that a pen they paid less than $1 for was not in fact an infinite ink vessel powered by magic. Their complaint read like a genuine warning to others about the pen's finite lifespan, a concept that apparently blew their mind. 21. A customer bought a high-quality yoga mat and complained that it was too sticky. They claimed that during their poses, their hands and feet stayed in place too well, preventing the graceful, accidental sliding they were used to on their old, worn-out mat. They were essentially complaining that the non-slip surface, the product's primary selling point and a crucial safety feature, was performing its function perfectly. They wanted a refund because the mat was preventing them from falling over. 22. In a legendary review for a book clearly labeled A Guide to Birdwatching, a customer gave 1 star because the book contained no actual birds. They were apparently under the impression that they were purchasing some kind of pop-up book where live flying birds would emerge from the pages. Their profound disappointment upon discovering it was just paper with words and pictures about birds was so immense they felt compelled to warn the world about this shocking case of false advertising. 23. A buyer purchased a 55-gallon drum of water-based personal lubricant. Their complaint was not about the product's quality, but about the social consequences of its delivery. They wrote, "The delivery driver just looked at me, then at the barrel, then back at me. It was so awkward." They were also angry that the barrel was impossible to hide when guests came over. Their 1-star review was a plea for more discreet packaging for their industrial-sized container of lube. 24. Someone ordered a poster of the periodic table of elements for their home office. They gave it 1 star because it was missing some of the newer elements that had been discovered and named in the years since the poster was printed. Instead of buying a more current version, they accused the poster itself of being scientifically inaccurate and intellectually lazy, as if a piece of laminated paper should automatically update itself with the latest atomic research. 25. A customer bought a product called the Titty Bear, a small, soft cushion that attaches to a seatbelt to prevent chafing. They left a 1-star review with a simple yet profound complaint. It doesn't look like a bear, and it has no titties. This person was genuinely let down that a product with a pun in its name did not deliver on the literal, anatomical promises that they had imagined in their own head. The lack of bear features was a secondary, but still noted, disappointment. 26. A customer bought a full set of high-end camouflage gear for hunting and left an enraged one-star review. Their complaint wasn't that it was uncomfortable or poorly made, but that it worked too well. They claimed they set their brand new camouflage backpack down in the woods for just a moment, turned around, and then spent the next 3 hours unable to find it. They were genuinely furious that the product's pattern was so effective it turned them into their own worst enemy. They wanted a refund for the gear they had lost due to its excellence. 27. The Hutzler 571 banana slicer is a legendary product, mostly due to one man's complaint. He claimed the device was so convenient and easy to use that it had saved him from the grueling, time-consuming task of slicing a banana with a knife. This newfound efficiency, however, had left a void in his life. With so much extra time on his hands, he had nothing to do but reflect on his loveless marriage. The slicer had, in his words, become a catalyst for an existential crisis that was leading him to divorce. 28. One buyer left a scathing review on a simple, full-length wall mirror. Their reason for the one-star rating was that the reflection was extremely unflattering and showed all of their flaws with brutal honesty. They were genuinely angry at the mirror for accurately reflecting their appearance, accusing it of having a negative bias. They seemed to have been shopping for a mirror that came with a built-in, real-time photo filter, and were deeply offended when all it did was show them what was actually there. 29. After a small kitchen fire, a homeowner used a dry chemical fire extinguisher to put out the flames, saving their house from burning down. They then went on Amazon and left the extinguisher a one-star review. The reason? It made a huge mess. They were absolutely incensed about the white powdery residue left all over their countertops and appliances, complaining about the hours it took to clean up. They were seemingly more upset about the inconvenience of cleaning than the fact that the product had literally saved their home. 30. Someone bought a Kindle e-reader right before a big camping trip and returned it with a furious one-star review. Their complaint was that the device was completely useless as a fire starter. They explained that when their matches got wet, they tried using the Kindle as kindling to get their campfire going, but the plastic and electronics refused to burn. They were genuinely angry that their 6-ounce electronic library couldn't double as a log, and they blasted Amazon for selling such a flimsy and non-flammable product. 31. An individual purchased a lovely decorative doormat that said, "Welcome," on it. A week later, they gave it 1 star. The complaint was short and to the point. People keep wiping their dirty shoes on it and now it's ruined. They were completely baffled that a mat, placed on the ground outside their front door, was being used for its one intended purpose. They treated the normal wear and tear of a doormat as a shocking betrayal, as if it were a priceless tapestry that guests were disrespecting. 32. A person bought a book titled The Beginner's Guide to Mountain Climbing and gave it a 1-star review, claiming the book was dangerously misleading. After reading it, they attempted to scale a challenging local peak and had to be rescued by a helicopter. Their complaint was that the book made climbing seem way too easy and fun, and failed to adequately emphasize the whole "you might literally fall off a cliff" part of the hobby. They were blaming the paperback guide for their own spectacular lack of judgment. 33. One of the greatest gag gifts of all time is the DVD rewinder, a plastic box that does nothing. A customer who clearly didn't get the joke bought one and left a furious review. They complained that after putting a DVD inside and pressing the button, absolutely nothing happened, and the movie was not rewound. They felt scammed, demanding a refund for a product that was failing to perform a function that has never existed for a technology that doesn't require it. It's a complaint from a different dimension of logic. 34. A home baker bought a highly precise digital food scale and was completely infuriated by it. Their 1-star review complained that the scale was too accurate, giving them measurements down to the 100th of a gram. This, they claimed, was unnecessary and stressful, and it completely ruined their relaxed approach to baking, where a scoop was a scoop. They were angry at the device's precision for exposing just how inconsistent their old methods were, blaming the tool for their own lack of exactitude. 35. A cat owner bought a simple laser pointer toy and left a one-star review describing a descent into madness. They complained that while their cat was initially overjoyed, it soon became addicted and obsessed with the red dot. The cat would now just sit and stare at the owner all day, meowing relentlessly, demanding its fix. The owner claimed the toy had destroyed their cat's personality and turned it into a judgmental, laser-crazed fiend, and they blamed the product for creating a monster. 36. Someone purchased a top-of-the-line universal remote, capable of controlling dozens of devices. They gave it 1 star because it was a weapon of mass domestic confusion. They complained that every time they tried to change the TV channel, it would also turn on the kitchen lights, open the garage door, and activate their smart toaster. Instead of properly programming the device, they treated it like a cursed artifact that was randomly wreaking havoc on their home. The remote was too universal for their own good. 37. A customer left a 1-star review for a high-quality, extremely accurate quartz wristwatch. Their logic was a work of art. They complained that the watch's perfect accuracy created a false sense of security, which consistently made them late. Because the time was always exactly correct, they believed they could procrastinate, only to discover that time, in fact, continues to move forward. They were genuinely blaming a perfectly functional time-telling device for their own profound inability to manage their schedule. 38. In what might be the most biologically confused complaint ever, a man left a 1-star review on a box of pregnancy tests. His detailed complaint explained that he was not pregnant, nor could he be, but he bought the test just to see if it worked. When the test predictably came back negative, he became furious, claiming the product was defective and gives false results. He was genuinely angry that the test correctly identified him as a non-pregnant male, a level of misunderstanding that is truly breathtaking. 39. After a nasty ice storm, a homeowner bought a large bag of rock salt to de-ice their driveway. They left a 1-star review because while the salt did an excellent job of melting the ice, the resulting saltwater runoff flowed into their adjacent flower bed and completely annihilated their prize-winning petunias. They were furious at the product for being salt and for doing what salt does to plants. They wanted a de-icing product that could also distinguish between a driveway and a delicate floral arrangement. 40. A student bought a gag pen that writes in invisible ink, which only becomes visible under a blacklight. They left a frustrated 1-star review, complaining that the pen was a total scam. They explained that they used it to take a full page of very important notes in class. But when they got home to study, the ink had completely disappeared from the page. They were genuinely angry that the product's primary feature, being invisible under normal light, was, in fact, its primary feature. 41. A customer bought an emergency car escape tool, which features a seatbelt cutter and a window hammer. They left a 1-star review claiming it was a complete piece of junk. Their reasoning? They had tested the hammer on their old coffee table and it barely left a scratch. They were genuinely disappointed that a tool specifically designed to shatter tempered car glass was ineffective against solid oak, and they concluded that, in a real emergency, it would be useless. It's a miracle they didn't test the seatbelt cutter on their favorite tie. 42. Someone purchased a book titled How to Live on 24 Hours a Day and gave it 1 star. The complaint was that the book offered no practical advice for time travel or bending the laws of physics. They were apparently looking for a manual that would literally add more hours to their day, and were deeply disappointed to find it was just a guide on time management and productivity. They felt ripped off because the book's title wasn't a literal promise to manipulate the space-time continuum for their convenience. 43. An individual ordered a pair of high-end Italian leather shoes and was furious with what arrived. Their 1-star review was not about the quality or the fit, but about the smell. They complained that the shoes had an overpowering and distinct odor of genuine leather. This person, who spent a premium for a genuine leather product, was apparently expecting it to smell like plastic, or perhaps fresh linen. The authentic scent of the very material they paid for was, in their mind, a catastrophic defect. 44. A person bought a 1,000-piece jigsaw puzzle featuring a picture of a clear blue sky. They left a 1-star review that was a howl of pure frustration. They complained that the puzzle was sadistically and unreasonably difficult, because every single piece looked exactly the same. They accused the manufacturer of creating a product that was a psychological torture device disguised as a relaxing hobby. They had willingly purchased a puzzle of a uniform color field and were shocked to discover it was, in fact, a puzzle of a uniform color field. 45. A customer purchased a brand new tent for a camping trip and gave it a 1-star review for a very specific reason. It did not come with Wi-Fi. They were genuinely outraged that their nylon shelter, designed to be used in the wilderness, far from civilization, was not also a fully functional internet hotspot. They complained about their inability to stream movies and check social media from inside their sleeping bag, blaming the tent manufacturer for their forced digital detox. 46. A user left a scathing review on a brand of extra-strength garbage bags. Their complaint was that the bags were too durable. They explained that when they tried to break the bag open by throwing it down their apartment's trash chute, it refused to burst, causing a clog. This minor inconvenience led them to declare the product a failure. They were angry that a product marketed on its toughness and resistance to splitting was in fact tough and resistant to splitting. They wanted a bag that knew when to quit. 47. After seeing a viral video, a person bought a pack of Mentos and a 2-liter bottle of Diet Coke. They left a 1-star review for the Mentos, complaining that when they dropped them into the soda, it created a massive, uncontrollable foam explosion that stained their new carpet. They were furious that the product performed exactly as demonstrated in the thousands of videos that made them want to try it in the first place. They treated a well-documented chemical reaction as a shocking and unforeseeable betrayal. 48. A customer bought an antique-style world map and gave it a 1-star review because it was geographically inaccurate. They complained that countries like the Soviet Union and Yugoslavia were present, while newer nations were missing. They were genuinely angry that a product explicitly sold as a vintage reproduction of an old map accurately represented the political geography of the past. They wanted a map that was simultaneously old-looking, but with perfectly modern borders, a cartographical paradox. 49. Someone purchased a high-end metal detector and took it to the beach. They promptly left a 1-star review complaining that the device only found junk. They were incensed that after hours of searching, their haul consisted of bottle caps, rusty nails, and loose change, instead of the pirate treasure chests and gold doubloons they were apparently expecting. They blamed the tool for the lack of buried riches on a public beach, as if the device was supposed to generate treasure, not just detect metal. 50. A buyer left a furious 1-star review for a simple pair of garden shears. Their complaint was that after leaving them outside in the rain for 3 consecutive months, they had developed spots of rust. They were personally offended that a tool made of metal, when exposed to constant moisture and neglect, had succumbed to the basic laws of chemistry. They accused the product of being low quality, seemingly expecting to buy shears forged from an undiscovered, corrosion-proof alien alloy. 51. A person bought a set of blackout curtains guaranteed to block 99% of light. They gave them 1 star because they were too effective. Their complaint was that the curtains made their bedroom so dark in the morning that they couldn't wake up on time and were repeatedly late for work. Instead of using an alarm clock like a normal human, they blamed the curtains for successfully doing their job, turning their room into what they described as a disorienting, lightless void that was ruining their career. 52. After purchasing a 5-pound bag of Haribo Gold Bears, a customer left a 1-star review complaining that they had eaten the entire bag in one sitting and now felt violently ill. They were furious at the company for selling their product in such a large, irresponsible quantity. They did not take any personal responsibility for their complete lack of self-control, instead framing their sugar-fueled stomachache as a direct result of the manufacturer's negligence. They wanted a warning label for binge eaters. 53. A customer bought a decorative Zen garden for their desk, complete with sand, a tiny rake, and some smooth stones. They left a 1-star review because their cat immediately decided it was a fancy miniature litter box. They were angry that the product was irresistibly attractive to felines, and they blamed the manufacturer for creating an item that a cat would logically mistake for a toilet. They wanted a refund for the Zen garden that was now decidedly not very Zen. 54. An individual purchased a Blu-ray disc of the movie Avatar and was extremely disappointed. Their 1-star complaint was that, no matter how hard they stared at the screen, the 3D effects did not work. It was only after a lengthy, angry tirade that they revealed they were watching it on a 10-year-old non-3D television. They were genuinely furious that the disc itself didn't magically upgrade their obsolete hardware, blaming James Cameron personally for their flat viewing experience. 55. Someone bought a high-powered leaf blower and left a 1-star review that was a masterpiece of flawed logic. They complained that the machine was completely useless because every time they blew the leaves into a neat pile, the wind would just blow them all over the yard again. They were angry at the leaf blower for not being able to control the weather. They saw this as a design flaw, as if the product should have a feature that creates a permanent, windproof force field around their leaf piles. 56. A man purchased a high-end water filter pitcher, the kind that removes everything from chlorine to minerals. He left a 1-star review complaining that it completely ruined his water by making it taste like nothing. He was genuinely upset that the filtration system had successfully removed the distinct chemical and mineral flavors he was used to from his tap water. He essentially paid a premium for pure water and then complained that the product had delivered exactly that, robbing him of his beloved chlorine aftertaste. 57. Someone bought a book on minimalism titled The Art of Less. They gave it 1 star with a complaint that was dripping with irony. The book was way too long and had too many pages. They were genuinely angry that a guide about getting rid of excess was, in their opinion, full of excess words. They were seemingly expecting the entire philosophy of minimalism to be condensed onto a single, elegantly designed postcard. The book's very existence as a physical object over 200 pages long was an affront to the principle it was teaching. 58. A customer bought a top-of-the-line treadmill and was furious with the results. Their 1-star review claimed the product was a total scam because after owning it for a month, they hadn't lost a single pound. Buried deep in their rant was the crucial detail. They were angry that the machine required them to actually walk or run on it for extended periods to see any benefits. They seemed to believe that simply owning the treadmill and perhaps standing on it occasionally should have been enough to trigger weight loss through osmosis. 59. One user left a scathing review for a simple car air freshener, the little cardboard tree you hang from your rearview mirror. They were incensed that after about a month it had completely stopped smelling like pine. They treated this entirely predictable and normal product lifespan as a catastrophic failure of engineering. They were furious that their $1 purchase wasn't a permanent, lifelong source of forest fragrance for their vehicle, and they wanted the world to know about this scented betrayal. 60. A parent bought their child a chia pet for their birthday. A few weeks later, they left a 1-star review complaining that the plant grew too fast and looked messy and unkempt. They were genuinely horrified that the terracotta animal, which is famous for sprouting a wild, uncontrollable mane of green sprouts, did exactly that. They included a photo of the fully grown chia pet, treating its chaotic, plant-based hairdo not as a success, but as a deeply disappointing horticultural failure. 61. In what might be the most heartbreaking review of all time, someone bought a pet rock. They gave it 1 star. Their complaint was that the rock lacked personality, was completely unresponsive to commands, and refused to play fetch. They were genuinely, unironically disappointed that an inanimate object, marketed as an inanimate object, was behaving like an inanimate object. Their review read like they had been promised a loyal, new best friend, but instead received a rock. 62. After buying a brand new standard 2-slice toaster, a customer left a bewildered 1-star review. The problem? The slots are far too small. When another user asked for clarification, they explained that they were trying to toast an entire uncut loaf of sourdough bread by shoving it into one of the slots. They were legitimately angry that the appliance was not designed to accommodate a whole loaf, blaming the toaster for their fundamental misunderstanding of how toast is made. 63. A person purchased a grow-your-own mushroom kit and was absolutely horrified by the results. Their 1-star review was a panicked warning to others. Do not buy this. Within a week, a strange and disgusting fungus started growing all over the box. They were completely disgusted and shocked to discover that their kit, which was specifically designed to cultivate edible fungi, was successfully cultivating fungi. The very purpose of the product was, to them, its most terrifying flaw. 64. One of the most legendary reviews was for a Spanish-language learning audio course. The customer gave it 1 star, complaining that the program was completely incomprehensible. The reason, they explained, was that the narrator and all the example conversations were in Spanish. They were furious that a product designed to immerse them in the Spanish language was, in fact, entirely in Spanish. They were expecting the lessons to be taught in English, a logic that defeats the entire purpose of language immersion. 65. A customer bought an ant farm and was deeply disappointed with the ants' performance. Their 1-star review complained that the ants were lazy and had no ambition. They wrote that all the ants did was dig random pointless tunnels all day. They were genuinely let down that the insects hadn't built anything interesting, like tiny pyramids or a miniature replica of the Eiffel Tower. Their expectations for ant architecture and work ethic were apparently set by cartoons, and reality was a crushing blow. 66. A parent bought a classic whoopee cushion for their child's birthday party. They later left a 1-star review, complaining that the product was inappropriate and embarrassing. They were appalled that when an unsuspecting guest sat on the cushion, it emitted a very loud and rude flatulence sound that ruined the dignified atmosphere of the party. They were genuinely angry that the prank item, which has had one single function for nearly a century, performed that function perfectly. 67. One customer's complaint wasn't about a specific product, but about a core feature of the website, one-click ordering. They gave Amazon a 1-star corporate review, claiming the button was a financially ruinous trap. They argued that it was far too easy and convenient, which caused them to constantly buy things they didn't want or need by accident. They were genuinely demanding that the company make it harder for them to spend their own money, blaming the seamless user experience for their own crippling lack of impulse control. 68. A person purchased a DVD of the movie Gravity and left a 1-star review full of rage. Their complaint was that no matter how many times they rewatched the film, it failed to realistically simulate the feeling of being in zero gravity. They were legitimately angry that watching a movie in their living room did not cause them to start floating off their couch. They felt the marketing was deceptive, as if they were promised a full anti-gravity experience and instead just got a motion picture. 69. Finally, a customer who bought a simple analog wall clock left a review that was a philosophical cry for help. They gave it 1 star because the constant ticking sound was a maddening, relentless countdown to the inevitable grave. They weren't complaining about the volume, but the very concept of audible time passing. They claimed the clock had become a source of profound existential dread in their home, and they wanted a refund for a product that was reminding them that their time on Earth is finite. All right, your turn. What's the dumbest complaint you've ever seen in real life? Or the most ridiculous thing you've secretly wanted to return? Drop it in the comments and prove you're not just lurking. And if this chaos made you feel a tiny bit smarter, hit like and subscribe before someone leaves a 1-star review on your taste in videos.